Hello, I am Matt Williamson at Williamson NFL, and getting to the offseason here. Content's going to be a little tougher, but we're going to really hit free agency hard, draft this quarterback situation for the Steelers. I'm going to start there today. We're going to do a lot of mailbag stuff. Never hesitate to send me a tweet or a comment if there's something you want me to dig into. We'll always find stuff to talk about as usual. But today I want to talk about non-Wilson and Fields options for Steelers quarterbacks. Not including the draft either. Dudes in the league that I think you could get and see if any of them entice you. It's tough, man. I mean, I'm sure most of you realize this, that, hey, Fields is far from perfect. Wilson's far from perfect. All these names we're going to talk today aren't going to probably make you more encouraged about who's behind center and your chances to win in 2025 and well beyond. I'm just breaking the news to you now. So the three UFAs to be that would have even the slightest bit of interest, and trust me, two of these are stretches. And those two stretches are Daniel Jones. I wasn't a fan of him coming out of Duke, but I do think if by chance you were to go Fields and Jones together, sign them both. I don't know. I mean, again, I am stretching here. I think that he got a little bit too much heat for how poorly things went with a bad organization when the Giants. And there are going to be a lot of teams looking for the next Baker Mayfield, the next Sam Darnold, who we'll get to, that were high picks that didn't work out in bad environments, but I can make them better. I'm a better coach. I'm a better environment. Maybe, but boy, do you got to squint for Daniel Jones to be that guy. I would be pretty disheartened if there's no way he'd be your only option. Maybe he'd be in Latrobe in some way, shape, or form, fighting for a gig against the Fields or something like that. I would kind of understand it, but he's not going to be dirt cheap either. But he is a free agent. We saw Jameis Winston at his best in a Browns uniform. I still like him. But he's so volatile, and he's fun. His teammates love him, but we're not here for entertainment value. We're not here just to throw it all over the yard and, be aggressive as could be. And I bet Tomlin would hate him, which I understand. I mean, you can't throw multiple picks in multiple games in a row or finish the season as a 17-game starter and have 25 interceptions and expect this team to go anywhere. And as much as I enjoy him as a player, I think the book is written on who Jameis Winston is. Now, Darnold to me is still interesting. I don't think they would go this direction, but I just want to chat it out with you guys. He has a lot of ability. He is younger than you think. He came into the league unusually young. He was in horrendous situations with the Jets and then the Panthers. Then takes that step back with the Niners, barely plays as a backup to Purdy, gets things right, is in a stable organization, then does the exact same thing with Minnesota, and we saw how that went. And for the majority of the year, he was a top half of the league player. No question about it. Now, everyone is going to harp on the last two games. The game against the Lions, that was the biggest game of the year, and then the playoff loss, both of which he wasn't good. But if you watch the all-22 on them, it's a little like Mahomes in the Super Bowl, where his teammates let him down over and over. The protection, they frankly got outcoached in those games. They didn't have easy answers for him. I'm not making excuses for him. It was bad, and that's the last thing we saw. And trust me, things that have plagued him his whole career are pressure, and he's not a great under pressure numbers type of guy. But I still think he's intriguing. I mean, he is a plus athlete. He's a plus arm. Everything physically is plus. He would be more expensive than Wilson. He'd be more expensive than Fields. But frankly, I think he has as good a chance to win today as Wilson would, and definitely a better chance to win tomorrow than Wilson. And that's probably true versus Fields as well. Are there 2 or 3 teams after him? I would bet. I think like Tennessee and the Raiders and teams like that are going to be looking to give him more money than the Steelers would. But he's the only one that I can at least write a story that, frankly, will be semi-fictional, where you got your guy and you gave up no draft picks to do it. I mean, that could be the case for whoever he lands with next. He showed me enough over 95% of this season that I could definitely tell you that story. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds from everything football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL, the UFC, and MMA. Head to BetOnline today and get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Two other quarterback names. And I know I threw this out on Twitter, and frankly, folks, I agree with you, the majority of you on this one. Derek Carr. The Saints hired Kellen Moore today to be their head coach. Their cap situation is almost as bad as the Browns. They very well could Spencer Rattler it. And I think what's going to happen is Carr will be a designated post-June 1st cut, because that relieves them about $30 million in cap relief. And they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Now, some of you might even be shutting the podcast off. Derek Carr, we're not talking about that guy. He stinks. I don't think he does. I think he is an NFL quarterback that will be a starter for the next 3 to 5 years in this league. He's over that hump. Now, his negatives are minimal athleticism / running. That might be a deal breaker in itself. I get it. Fine. You just don't want a pocket passer. I totally understand that. I bet Tomlin doesn't want a pocket passer, and I 100% understand why. And unlike Winston, he will often side on the less aggressive decision. Can I drive this ball in there in 3rd and 8 over the middle? No, I'll check it down. And therefore, is just not a lot of flash. But his career's better than you think. I really do believe that. I think he's better than you think. He has not been in great environments. I think you'd win games with Carr, and I think he gets a worse rep than he deserves. And I think you could get him for next to nothing. I think he'll probably be, like you said, you could trade for him now, but then there's weird contract ramifications. Or you could sign him once he gets cut. Again, I just don't think that's the style of quarterback you want. Aaron Rodgers is not going to return to the Jets. I don't know if he'll play football ever again. I have a hard time believing Aaron Rodgers has any interest in the Giants, the Raiders, the Titans, these terrible teams. Is he going to go behind a terrible offensive line, win 4 games next year? Therefore, I think he probably doesn't play football next year. But if I'm him, one of the only spots where you're at least in contention to be a playoff team, win double-digit games, is Pittsburgh. And I could make the argument that if you're going to go old, Rodgers is better than Wilson. I don't 100% believe that, but I 85% believe that. And Rodgers finished the season quite good. He's obviously an all-time great. But the concerns here are you could get him for free. You could just pay him. You're not going to give up any draft picks for him. And I get that. And maybe you draft the Ohio State kid Howard in the 4th round or 3rd round, and he sits behind Rodgers, and you go from there. But boy, all the other stuff that Rodgers brings with him. Although one of those other things could be Devontae Adams. I do believe that's not insane, although it sounds like Adams would rather play on the West Coast. Fine. I'm not standing on the table that you should bring Rodgers in. Frankly, I would vote against it. Because here's the thing, and although Wilson has some of these characteristics too, that they kind of run their offense no matter what. And Rodgers' version of the offensive scheme is kind of the outdated West Coast, not Arthur Smith type scheme. I just don't know that on the field, X's and O's mesh well at all. I don't know if Rodgers with the Rooneys and this town and Tomlin mesh well at all either. Does Cam Hayward want to deal with Aaron Rodgers? Or would he open arms, say, boy, that dude can still play and he wants to win? I don't know, but I had to bring his name up. The last two names I'll bring up are more appealing in terms of what they bring to the field, but they're trade candidates. Seattle had a new coach last year that inherited Geno Smith. They too are at the bottom of the league in terms of cap situation right now. The thing is, they don't have any young guys in tow. And I'm sure a lot of you are like, Geno Smith. Geno Smith's the best football player I've mentioned yet. I don't know what to think of Darnold. Geno Smith to me is probably the most underrated quarterback in this entire league. And he can really throw the football. He's not a great athlete. He's a downfield passer. He is a big-time intermediate to deep thrower. Not that he's bad at the short. I don't know what it'd cost at his age. It's a short-term fix. But you'd be a better football team. You'd be a better quarterback team with Geno Smith than you were last year. That I believe. Now, the crown jewel is Matthew Stafford. I think there's a legit chance Stafford gets traded. There's been a lot of buzz that Stafford gets traded and then they sign Darnold. And they just kind of buy 10 years and restructure, just get younger in LA. Now, I think Stafford's a total superstar. Still. I've said this many times. There's 4 elite quarterbacks on the planet. 2 of them are in the division, Mahomes and Allen. Stafford might be next. I mean, to me, it's Stafford, Herbert, Jaden Daniels, Stroud. I think Stafford's the best player at his position in the NFC. Better than Love or Hurts or Kyler or Dak. He is a stud. He will throw ropes over the middle of the field. I think he actually fits Arthur Smith's system pretty well. Now, he would also probably look at this situation and be like, McVay to a running team that wants to play defense and kind of shackle me a little bit. Is that really something that appeals to me? I'm going to go somewhere else. That could happen. Or he could look at it and be like, that's the best football team that's quarterback needy that I could actually end up with and fight for playoff spots and proud organization and good defense, developing offensive line, etc. But what's he going to cost? I mean, I think at a minimum, he costs you your second round pick. Now, you'd have to have a long conversation with him. Matthew, I mean, what's your plan? Are you going to give me 2 more years, maybe 3? Then I'm at least having conversations with the Rams. But to be honest, folks, I think that's pie in the sky. And I'm sure a lot of you are saying, why waste any youth just to get in the ring with Lamar and Allen and Mahomes, but still be a noticeable dog? Maybe. But one good draft class and a Stafford and another receiver. Could you win Super Bowls next year? No, probably not. But he's really, really good. And rarely do really, really good quarterbacks become available in the open market. Oh, one other name I want to throw out there too is Kirk Cousins. We've talked about this too. The beauty of Cousins is he's had a lot of success, and you would get him for the Russell Wilson contract of next to nothing. I just think he's too immobile. Unless your doctors look at him and be like, man, that year coming off a bad injury really immobilized him, but he's back to being the version from a couple of years ago, which was also immobile. So, I mean, he has no ceiling of being a mobile type passer, but he was quite good 2 years ago. I mean, he's a good football player, the 11th best quarterback on the planet. He's going to get cut. You could get him for nothing. So I do see that appeal. Do we know that he's totally shot? We don't know it. I just highly suspect it. So those are your veterans that could be had in some way, shape, or form, in my opinion. And I doubt many of you listened to this and thought, ooh, that's appealing. I hadn't thought of that one. Yeah. I mean, maybe Geno Smith at the right price. I would think he's cheaper than Stafford. Is that a 3rd round pick? Maybe. But the Seattle's even want to move him because, again, they don't have a young pup in waiting. So it's pretty hairy, folks. I do think when it's all said and done, Wilson or Fields will be the opening day starter. And I get that. All right, everyone. Take care.